get the show on the road. My name is Frankie Ward. I'm joined by 11-2K and Mini Miner. 11, the action yesterday was absolute cinema. We can't really put it any better than that, can we? What are you expecting from today?
Oh, I'm expecting more dominance from Malibuca's trio. I'm expecting some of our top big names to start to shine through, right? I feel like the day two is that second stretch of the race where you really sort of kick in and we see who's really here to take the whole thing.
Mini Miner?
Yeah, I thought yesterday was great. We had a lot of surprises, for both good and bad for some of our teams. And I think we're going to see more of that today. I think, Venom in particular made it so interesting with them landing in different drop spots every single game. Will they bring the same heat today? We'll have to find out, but it was absolute cinema yesterday.
It was incredible to see all our trios bringing to the lobby, but it was also interesting to see what the zones were pulling, because the North was dominating 11. I'm slightly suspicious. What was going on?
Yeah, there was a lot of conspiracies yesterday, weren't there? Because, a similar thing happened in NA where most of the zones there were sort of towards the North, except for one. I think there was one game where it wasn't. So everyone sort of got their eyes on Zeke, right? Because we all know Zeke controls the zone, so blame him. But in all seriousness, yes, a lot of Northern
Yo,
zones.
what's the tip? I'm live on YouTube right now, streaming FNCS EU Grand Finals. If Shat wins, I'll do a face-to-face live on stream. Make sure you guys join up and comment in chat. Let's go, let's go.
Gets used by a lot of players.
Yeah, it's almost like the excuse, right? It's like, if we don't have a good day, North zones, that's how it was. But there's two of our teammates in that top five, in Thomas and Fred Oxy's team, that are landing towards the south. They're on that sort of south side of the map, and they're still doing very well. And I think that sort of opens up the question of, what's more important here? Is it more important to have that, close zones? Is that going to be a key factor? Or is it going to be just playing Surge really well, which both of those teams have been doing? They've been above the Storm Surge threshold almost every single time, and they're making those rotations a lot easier for them by being above the threshold. So I think that definitely has a part to play as well.
Yeah, look, we can't be naive to the fact that zones are a thing, and zones not pulling zones is a thing. Like, me and you have played many tournaments together, and there's been many tournaments where we both ended it going, couldn't get a zone all day, right? Yeah. Like, we've both been in those shoes where we complained, not on a high level like this one. But I think the key thing is, right, and at least my conclusion would be, yes, zones, not pulling zones is like a thing, but what's more of a limiting factor to your placement is like your ability to do with Surge in these lobbies, right? Because if you do have an ironclad Surge man where you just are getting a lot of early damage, it makes getting, that distance and getting to zone a lot easier to handle.
We were not just talking about the northern zones during yesterday's action, but also Vico, Veno, and Flixie, because this is a trio that deserves a drop map all of their own now, 11, because they were so unpredictable. I knew you knew what was cooking, but we were all kept guessing.
Yeah, to be fair, even though they told me what they were going to do, it still did surprise me in where they went, right? Because he gave me an idea of a couple places where they were going to do it, and still they were landing in places I didn't even expect. The talk of the town is just, will this continue? How effective of a strategy is this? For the most part, it was successful, right? There was only one game where they went down off spawn, Mini, and they're sitting in top 6, right? If you look at Major 1, Malibuca's trio was actually 6th going into day 2 of Major 1, right? And they ended up, 2nd place on the day. So Veno's trio are still well in this to be able to have like a top 3, a really good placement. I'm looking forward to seeing how they adapt things today.
I'm interested to see how they approach it today, because will they use yesterday's success? Maybe they think, okay, we had a good game in game number 4, good game in game number 5. They were landing towards the north side of the map. Are they going to replicate those successful off-spawn situations, or are they going to sort of play it by ear? How are Malibuca's trio doing? Maybe how Queasy and Mustache trio doing? Are they going to adapt maybe on the fly a little bit? That's the big question that I have about this trio, because it does seem like they're having a lot of success. Those mid games needed to be tweaked a little bit towards the beginning of the day, but that's what I'm really interested to see today.
Yeah, I definitely think, to some extent, they've obviously lost a bit of an element of surprise on some of those teams. And I think there will also be teams who have been reverse engineering sort of their game plans and thinking, oh, could we get caught out by them, right? We obviously saw the game where they went Seaport and caught Queasy's trio out off of a timing. I bet you there would have been a bunch of teams and replays going, can we get caught out here? Is there enough loot there for them to land that and then run in and fight us, right? So we'll see what they do today to make sure it keeps working.
Evan, you mentioned that Malibuca, Ping, and Wox, they were in 6th after day 1 of Major 1, but now they're at the top of the leaderboard. I'm just wondering, what's the big difference between Major 1 and Major 2 for these guys? Because actually, when we went into the action yesterday, we were expecting them to not do as well as Major 1.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's fair. I think a lot of people still predict these guys to be doing like, you know, a top 6 performance, right? Which is what they were doing by day 1 of Major 1. I think the key difference in where they've been excellent compared to Major 1, absolutely, and the difference in the way we were discussing them on the broadcast last season, Mini, versus this season is, this season, every endgame, look at them on screen, it's all 3 of them together. I remember so many games of Major 1 where we would come back and it was like, oh, what a great duo clutch from Malibuka and Ping, or what a great duo clutch from Ping and Wox, right? It was always a lot of them being a duo, or maybe one of them's gone down early. Yesterday, they were together in every single endgame. And if you actually look at the numbers here in comparison, so this is showing in what zone one of them went down, right? The first zone where one of them went down. And if you look at Major 1 on the left, 10th zone, 11th zone, 8th zone, 8th zone, that's a lot of games on day 1 where they literally had just 2 players going into, you know, the end game, or 2 players going into zone 11. Yesterday, every single game, all 3 of them were up going into zone 11. Massive difference for them there, Mini.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And I mean, it just sort of highlights how impressive that performance was
Absolutely
the last
huge.
major as well. The fact they were able to do it as a duo just shows that they are a team to look out for. And of course, they didn't go on and win that entire major, but now they've fixed a few of those problems going into the end game. They've got all 3 firepower teammates next to each other in those final situations. And these are the results. It's almost like they're playing a very similar style of end game, but with an additional 33% of power.
And I mean, let's look at sort of the biggest difference in how they were playing, right? Because if you look at last season, they were a team that was very much about fighting in the mid game. Because look at the players, right? The caliber of players. When you have Malibuka, Wox, and Ping on the team, you want to fight anybody. And that's what they were doing on day 1 of last major. Zones 1 to 5, 20% of their damage was dealt with shotguns, right? Whereas they adjusted on day 2 because they realized that, hey, this isn't quite working how we want it to work. And so on day 2, it was only 7% of their damage in zone 1 to 5 was with shotguns, right? A lot more focus on tagging from afar and getting distance and power positioning. And here, this weekend, day 1, only 3.7% of their damage yesterday was dealt with shotguns in zone 1 to 5. These guys aren't about fighting in the mid game the way they were in previous seasons. They're more about, again, good search positions. There were a couple zones that were very favorable for them, right, in terms of being able to just sort of stay in that lavish area and tag teams all around. But the different approach to Surge, I think, is why they're making it to end games more consistently as a trio.
Yeah, and when we were watching back some of the games yesterday, I was trying to look for some weaknesses. I was trying to look at a few moments where, like, oh, maybe they're not doing something so great there, or maybe they're doing something excellently there. And we just sort of found that every single aspect, every single facet of their game was just top tier. You know, it may not be number 1 on the leaderboard, but they're up there in every single category, and they're so consistent.
But Minnie, there could be some disruptions to that consistency today, surely, because there are trios with eyes on the Blade of Champions, and there's one particular trio who we've already discussed. They're very unpredictable, and their names are Vico, Venno, and Flixie. Do you think they potentially going to contest them today?
Well, that's got to be their worry, right? Malibuka, they have to think about this potential, particularly looking at how they went off spawn against Queasy, of course. Venno, they sort of camped around by that vault, and of course Malibuka's team does have a vault, so that's definitely something that's going to be on the back of their minds, Levin. It's just about now, how do they adapt to that if that is a possibility?
Yeah, and look, on social media last night, there was a lot of people asking Venno the question of like, hey, what are you going to do to deal with those guys? Because your plan right now might make you beat all to catch up to these guys. You're almost going to have to hinder their plan, right? And take the grand finals away from them. And all Venno said in response was, I have a plan. That's all he said. I think it was Boop that asked him. Shout out to Boop. I do the podcast with him. And he said, in response, Venno simply just said, I've got a plan. And it's interesting he says that, Minnie, because I'm curious what that plan's going to be. When you look at the way they were actually doing this strat yesterday, they're not like just directly landing on teams, right? It's not like they landed straight on Seaport. They land sort of on the outskirts on a lot of places, loot up because there's so much loot on the map, and then they're able to sneak in and catch timings. And I think that's going to be really hard to do from Lone Wolf. There's so many teams around. Malibuka's going to just have a lot of vision to be able to see them if they are trying to sneak around. So we'll see what Venno and Raz have had cooked up last night.
Yeah, and something else I was looking at in their sort of final few games yesterday when they were thinking maybe they could land on us, they were looking around. When they were gliding in, they weren't just looking at their drop spot, they were looking, making sure that there was no other team in Venno's team landing nearby. So that's going to be a key element to their strategy today, I'm sure, as well.
Well, if you need a reminder of the action that went down on day 1, you should look no further than our casters. Taka and Takata didn't miss a moment, and I'm curious to know what they thought of the action.
It's very easy to fixate on what was taking place between Veno and Malabiko's teams respectively, but Takada, player flexibility is always a massive conversation for day 2 performances, and even looking at a player like Queasy, for example, he spent something like 6 hours doing VOD reviews all throughout yesterday, and I'm sure he's not the only one.
It's what you gotta do, right? Especially when you're in the major finals. But obviously Malabuka is currently in the lead, but 2nd to 7th place is only a 30-point difference. And currently that top 7 will qualify you to the global championship. This is the major with the most qualifying spots at 5. And 2 of the trios that already qualified in major 1 are in that top 5. So we'll see how those borderline players are able to change it up. But before that, the desk has more to break down.
Thank you so much, guys. Now, there's one trio we didn't get much of a chance to talk about yesterday, but I know there'll be some Danish fans in the chats, in our chat, and in the respective viewing parties tonight who are desperate for us to talk about our third place trio. Tino, Pablo Wingo, and Fredoxy came from the last chance qualifier, and they've had some excellent end games, and now they're sitting really where they deserve, Mini Minor.
Yeah, I mean, they have now an uncontested Mars Meadows. They had a lot of success there as well. Of course, we spoke about at the beginning of the show, a lot of North Zones as well. And they're a team that do have what it takes to perform well. And it's, you know, it's a last chance qualifying team, Levin. It's a team that we necessarily didn't expect to do as well as they have done when it comes to this competition, but they're just on fire right now.
Yeah, they're sort of like taking in that Vanya, their inner Vanya from last season, right? Where you sort of come through the last game of the last chance qualifier and then you just roll through grands in a way that maybe people aren't expecting you to. And look, I had things to say about this trio, right? You know, I was asking the question of Chino after their group stage where they didn't qualify. I said, Chino, was it really worth, you know, dropping Pink and Nebs if you're not even going to be able to make it to the grands now? He has shut me right up, right? Because they have been unbelievable yesterday. Of course, you know, to harness my inner Roy Keane here, that's their job, you know, you're uncon Mars Medals, right? Of course you should be doing good. But Fredoxy being 2nd place in damage dealt so far in the lobby, right? Great individual performances from this team that I think is going to go a long way, and I think this is talent-wise a team that definitely deserves to be in the global championship, so hopefully they can keep it up.
And obviously, Levin, we're very excited to see them doing well, because another trio that's doing well in 7th spot are Pink, Nebs, and Kiro.
Yes.
And obviously, a bit of rivalry brewing between Pink and his ex-teammate, Chino.
Absolutely, right? You know, I think a lot of people probably think I'm a bit biased to Pink and Nebs because 1, they're British, and 2, I'm mates with them. And I absolutely am biased. However, I do like a good story. And so seeing Chino's trio doing incredibly well is great. I think it you know, continues to bolster this rivalry between these 2 teams who I think are both teams that, again, you'd expect to make it to global championships, right? When you look at the talent amongst EU. But seeing them both potentially do it here in this major, I think is so fun. Kiro has stepped into this team. I love that interview you did with Pink, Frankie, and he sort of made a comparison to Kiro being like Anas back in the day, which I think is the highest compliment you can make, because back in the day, the way people talked about Anas as a player was like, Anas doesn't make mistakes. And the fact that he sees that in Kiro, I think says a lot, Mini. This is a team who I'm pushing to the end. I hope they can do it, because it's going to be hard when you're that bubble team.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pressure on them coming into the end games as well. I mean, yesterday they had a really good time. They had a few sort of top 3s, and there was a couple of moments where they went down in the mid game. So that's really where they're thriving right now. They're not necessarily consistently getting top 10s, but they are making the most of the end games when they do get there. So will they do the same today? If zones are a little bit more south, we'll have to wait and see. But that's where teammates like Hero are so valuable in those end game situations.
Given that Pink's trio are currently sat in 7th, and just a little explainer for everyone watching at home, we are looking at the top 7 in particular for spots for global championships, because currently Pink, Malabuka and Wox, Vico, Veno and Flexi, they have already booked their spots based on their major 1 results. So being inside the top 7 is where all of our trios really do want to be. Do we think that Pink's trio are capable of holding on or even moving further up in the standings, Levin?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I think they're capable of holding on. But look at the competition around them, right? Seti, Hari, Kami, right behind them. iJob's trio, right behind them. iJob's trio, I thought, was fantastic in a lot of the games yesterday. So they've got tough competition, but I certainly think they're good enough.
Well, we are about to find out if they can do it and what all of our trios are made of, because we are ready for game number 7 with the best Taco and Takata.
It's the starting point of day 2, and with match 7 on the horizon here at Takata, all of these teams essentially revving up their engines because everybody wants to try and cement their position on that leaderboard, and they're probably even hoping that Malibuca's team, Veno's team, that they stay inside of that pocket because extending the leaderboard out to that 7th place position would be a nice feature.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, what I love most about day 2 is the prep work that goes into it. But we don't have to wait long to get into it because game 7 is ready to go.
Game 7.
And now all of our teams prepared. They've had that night to review. They've had a chance to analyze and assess, figure out what could be better, what didn't go their way. Aside from just the zones, it's not the only feature. It can definitely play a big part here, but these teams and the map in general has definitely shifted, Takata.
100%. And speaking about a shift, Tayson no longer dropping on the Crime City side of the map, now actually contesting Kappa Kappa. Now, I said contesting because according to the drop map, I mean, Hootie, Dexy, and Artist are also landing around here, but it seems that that is not going to be the case. But hold on, pause that thought, because it looks like Vico, Veno, and Flixie, they're not even going for the third party. They are directly contesting Lone Wolf against the #1 trio from day 1, Ping, Walks, Malibu.
The elephant in the room all along was, are they going to actually challenge Malibuca's point disparity? And Vico, Veno, Flixie, they certainly seem like they've been preparing for this contest at Lone Wolf Lair. Vico still rumbling around upstairs. Malibuca under some heavy pressure. Veno wants to drop, but he's going to sit tight, wait it out. Throw out another pulse scanner, just keeping steady tabs on exactly where Malibuca's team is moving. They're trying to close in. Flixie needs some help. Flixie's falling incredibly low. As well. Happy shields take out, but it's Flixie who's under heavy fire. Watt's gonna be the first to fall, though. This is massive. Veno is finally
wait, hold up.
Vanessa
seems like, oh no, Vanessa's dead. No way.
Though, has to watch his back.
He's got a bat.
It seems like the conclusion is going to pivot entirely into Vico and Flixie's direction. But Vico still taking a moment here. They want to ensure that they close this one out.
They cannot make any mistakes. Medmist is going to be popped for Malibuca and Ping. They have to make a decision now. What is the play? Do they try and escape? Do they fight this? This is going to shake things up. Vico, Veno, Flixie knew it was going to be impossible to beat them in terms of consistency when they were switching dropouts for every match. And now after knocking Malibuca, moving it to a 3 versus 1, this is the only way for them to win this tournament. To get first place once again and continue the dream of going 4 for 4 this year, winning every single major, winning the global championships. Both of these trios have already qualified. But it's more than just qualifying, Taco. It's about winning.
It's always going to be about winning, and for Ping, this doesn't look like a winning position. He's just trying to hide out for as long as possible, but Veno knows best. They can't afford any survivors. This is the time and place to close things out, because if Ping manages to escape somehow, some way, they're going to just have to revisit this whole scenario and trying to control Malibuca's point leads. But Vico, Veno, Flixie closing in. The scanner has already marked it. Ping first to be on the move, and he's scrambling, but just getting hunted down from so many different directions. It's hard for him to keep tabs on what comes next. And Vico finds the second elimination to open things up here in Game 7. This is what we were kind of anticipating.
Ping, Wasp,
Malibuca. Takata, absurd.
Now, this is what I'm talking about, Taco. This is what you want to see. We saw it over at NA, Peterbot Clicks. They went head-to-head when they were battling for the first place spot. Veno, Vico, Flixie, they said, you know what? We want to win. It doesn't matter. We already qualified globals. We don't want to settle for a second place. We want to settle for that first place, and this was their only option. Now the question is, we still have 6 total matches to be played out today. Will the trend continue? Will it go back and forth? But for now in game 1, Vico, Veno, Flixie come out on top. Twi, Noms, and Awahalo, though. Nice little pick up on the drop spot as we switch on over to the southwest side of the map here.
And Moneymaker, they have a player completely shut out from the map, feeling confident to just fully chase all the way towards
Does
that
loot though,
southwest
off
corner.
spawn is crazy.
They're just biding their time. They know if it comes down to a battle of attrition, 3 versus 1 is always going to be the most favorable outcome.
I should beat him.
And then just elimination
I mean,
onto
probably
Ricky.
should all.
Just trying to gather as much surge damage as possible. We saw so many teams, Moneymaker's team obviously being very open about the zones, having to maintain surge damage. It's always going to be difficult, so the sooner you get the start on it, the better.
I'm trying to see. I didn't quite see where the zone's pulling. I'm seeing
Watch
if we
out,
got
man, there's
another
a
north
bot
zone
in
to
the
start it
stream.
off,
Hold
or
up.
if it's gonna get shaken up.
Just assume it's the north.
Gotta call Zeke, be like, yo, Zeke, you gotta stop this, man. We gotta get more south zones.
Mixing.
Just kidding.
But I've never heard of
There's
half
Raha
these
Mixon
names in
and
Dransburg.
Combeck. There's a trio that they always make it into these major finals, and they do a pretty good job. I mean, last season they got 14th, but I say a good job in the sense as they'll make it to the upper half of that leaderboard, but we haven't seen them in that top 5, top 7 in qualifying range for the global championship. So hopefully this time around they have a better shot at it. They are starting off in a rough spot, but you had a whole day to recuperate it. You had a whole day to VOD review, just like iDrop, Sky, and Scroll that had an incredible start to yesterday, but then it started going downhill as time went on. So if they have another incredible start today, it could put them back up. They are outside of qualifying range currently, so they got to push themselves into that top 7. Currently in 9th, so not too far, but the job's not done.
Hold up.
This is still the calm before the storm, though, because iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, one of the few teams that we did see consistently keying to establish their surge strategy. They weren't content with trying to play out these bloom battles. They wanted to get up close and personal directly into the action. Only this time, it appears as if Sky maybe taking a page out of some of those other, or the majority of the lobby's books. If you can't beat them, join them mentality. And
can't beat him, join him.
It's certainly a method.
Bomba.
When everyone else is
that.
doing it, you kind of have to play your own part here.
Chaptini Scree.
Can I even have TikTok things like this? Okay, cool, I can.
A little bit of pressure off their back with Tayson, no longer
hold up.
dropping around this side of the map. But at the same time,
palm
you
in
can see
my
it as a
phone.
con if they're unable to find enough damage. The
Interesting.
thing is, with
Wait,
the amount
what?
of trios that are kind of around this western part of the map, they should have no problems at all finding those tags. It's kind of one of those clusters we spoke about where a lot of trios tend to kind of base themselves around.
Yeah, I did better, sir. No.
Get damage for storm surge. No many
Yesterday
issues,
was
not
just
many issues yet.
incredibly rough, though, for this team.
Wait a
And again, they
minute.
weren't the only team that encountered their fair share of struggles,
Hold
but Chap distinctly,
Boop,
someone that
there we go,
so many
so delete
teams
this.
have just constantly been placing in such high
I'll just go on
regard.
mute.
You know that he's a crazy fragger,
Bup,
but
bup,
in this
bup.
kind
Yeah,
of
that's fine.
competitive landscape, Takada, we're
Bup,
seeing
bup,
things like
nice, there we go.
Prime Shark, for example, in a surge base. Noah Riley in a surge base.
I want to add it
And
image, but how do I add
these
images?
teams, when they're not necessarily able to utilize
No.
the full benefit of some of that fighting power that they're capable of,
One sec, chat, I
teams
can't see.
like
I'm on
Venya, Marius,
TikTok
and
thing for a sec.
Pixie
Hold up.
are then able to just kind of stake their way more consistently in that top end of the leaderboard.
I mean, it's the meta, right? You want to minimize those risks. Queasy Veno, we're talking about how Cammy, Seti Hari are the ones that always kind of are the first to act on the new season's meta, how to play it out. They were the ones, stacking up on heals, going for those tags, and not taking those fights up close. Now, it has its pros and cons, but
this on, like...
the least amount of risks that you're able to put yourself into.
Yo,
obviously
2
gonna
viewers,
benefit
what
you
the heck?
most in a 12-game
Nice.
competition, where consistency
cool.
is key.
I'll put the
You
TikTok
saw
chat
kind of the
on my...
stats on Malibuca ping and walks and how
Yeah,
the
it's-
percent of damage from whether they were using ARs or shotguns, led heavily to ARs.
What
this
the
season.
chat?
But, hopefully we see some more fights. I want to see some more close quarters combat. We'll see if it actually happens, though.
Still super impressed with the performance that Prodoxy, Pablo, and Chino were able to put on yesterday. The fact that they're currently sitting in that third place position heading into today, despite so many of those zones
No
pulling
viewers,
so
well,
far
well.
away from where they're landing just indicates that they've definitely figured out very steady levels for how to rotate. And game 1 yesterday was really the only match that didn't go their way. Every other match, they were able to find themselves in top 10 position. And that kind of consistency is really going to take you the extra mile when you are looking for those opportunities to just stay inside of the leaderboard top 5, top 7.
I'm curious now how well, you know, the trios that were 2nd, 3rd, and 4th maybe are going to perform. The Vanya, Pablo, the Queasy. Now that Malibuca's out of the game with 0 points. How much
who is in the chat?
Closed. They were over
Show me
like
on
130 points difference from 2nd place. So if all those trios kind of in that top 7, like you were mentioning, can do a good job here, it's going to get interesting.
If you're
Such a familiar
in
sight,
chat,
though,
type
at
1.
Rolling
Yo,
Blossoms
what's the
Farm in
TikTok
Bermuda
live? No, no one's
Triangle.
on it. That's nice.
Classic exchanges right now. Thomas HD continuing to build his way up on the Kinch leaderboard for the damage position. It is definitely impressive, though. It's
Thomas
impressive how accurate you can be.
Whoa, he's
They're willing
Whoa!
to right now.
Whoa, okay, those are spamming emojis now.
Pink Hero and Nebs,
Keep the chat active and then
right on that
Little.
border or line of qualifying for the
what's
Global
the word?
Championship.
What's the
7th
word?
place right
Oh.
now, going into this match, 283 points.
let's see.
I like the way they're looking. They either had like really good games or kind
Yeah,
of mid games. I mean,
that's peak.
Devin was talking about they got like 3rd, 2nd, but then the games they didn't make it far in the late game, 19th, 11th, 14th. So hopefully they can kind of get that consistency going here in day 2, but it looks like so far at Demon's Dojo, it's quite silent.
Nebs pink.
So many teams still trying to just figure out where exactly they want to actually head first.
So many teams still trying to.
Seti, Cammy, and Mari.
Who do I think to get first?
There were definitely some
I mean,
expressed
I want Savage to win, but realistically, I think it's either going to pin what's Malibuca or Veno. I don't
And
think
it's always going to
there's
be
like any
an
other people who
understandable
probably
position. You know,
it'll
us
be able to
as
like
spectators, we just
block
get
it, I
to
guess, and do that well,
enjoy
but never
every
know.
element that's involved.
Cammy
in
and Set would be
competitive
good to
play,
first, to be
but
fair.
I know for the players, it can always be a little bit of a sticky situation at times.
Yo, what's
Still,
good?
this
TikTok
is
chat, what's good?
such
What's
a
good?
seasoned
Type 1 in
veteran
chat if you're
trio,
watching.
Takada. It's hard pressed to
Right, big
believe
Christopher.
that they wouldn't be able to overcome and climb
Make sure you guys
into
like
that
up the
threshold
live as
leaderboard
well, guys. You know.
to find their global championship spot.
There you go. Wait, guys, if the game or I'm too loud, just let me know in the chat.
Frenic and Dinas.
Yo, what's good?
This
TikTok
is a
chat.
trio that lands quite south on the map, but despite that, you know, they're still in 10th place. So people are talking about, hey, you know, so many north zones, what are we going to do? I mean, this is almost as south as you can get. Landing, you know, kind of close to Shogun's, not exactly, but they've done a good job. And,
Wait, how
you know,
does
once
he
again,
if that's there?
a northeast zone, literally opposite side of the map for this trio. But hey, they made it here once again. We'll see how it's affected them in terms of surge and how much damage they were able to pick up having to rotate so far. But I mean, they still have a good amount of mats. But Vico, I don't see... wait. I think he took the porta potty, right? I might have read the name wrong, but yeah, okay. Volko, Kiddo, and Cringe might have gotten a little
Yo, it's alive.
against Vico Benoflixi, but
No
I think
one's
they're
watching
good.
it, no.
They seem to have escaped. No eliminations on the board, so scared me for a moment there. I guess one thing is, you know, Malibuca Ping and Walks are very familiar with Lone Wolf. Vico has landed there before in the divisional cups, but it wasn't the whole season, right? It was like they were trying out these different spots, so you know they have kind of a bit of a plan, and I'm sure they studied an incredible amount last night to have another plan going into today, but they haven't practiced it as much as Malibuca's trio, so we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, it's Vico, Veno, Flixi, Taco. They are going to be more than ready enough to get a solid match out of this.
But they still might not have been expecting to get
Team
so caught in
Arsenal.
such early congestion surrounding Magic Mosses. Veno trying to just kind of find a path around the side of it all.
Someone
but
joined my
they could
post.
also be
Yo,
looking
W
for
Oliver,
more
W
eliminations,
Oliver in
even
the
with
chat.
Malabuka having been
Oh, what's good to chat? What
at
is
the start of
it?
this match, there's still
Insta
going
still
to
on
be
YouTube live. www.
big boon of points if
Alright,
they
chat,
wanna
make sure
play
you guys like it up,
catch-up,
bro.
or if they wanna do it at a
If you guys have
super
read it,
fast
if
rate,
Shat
because
wins
you never know,
FNCS, I will
that
do a
element of
face review
surprise
live
is
on
gone
stream.
now. Malabuka
So,
is fully on high alert.
you know,
They're
maybe
aware
stick
that
around
they're
to the
going to
end.
be conned most likely at Lone Wolf.
But I mean, if you're talking about big games,
Also, if someone gets like
Veno
Galaxy or
really had
something
the
crazy,
highest elim match yesterday.
then I'll do a
Game
face reveal
one, they
too,
had
because you know what,
18
why not?
eliminations. It brought them, what, I think they were 14
Get yourself on that, like,
third, something crazy
widget
like
thing,
that.
you know, if you like,
So if
life
they do it
stuff.
one, time again now, especially that Malabuka got taken off spawn, this could be
Mr.
a huge
Savage,
chance to
should we
kind of
do
bring
a
themselves
video?
closer to that first place spot. Savage,
Oh,
Reason,
FNCS
and
merge, you
Video,
know, it's so tough if
tough
you're
zone for
still
them as
in
well,
that.
having to rotate
Peak.
from the bottom left to the top right of the map. But hey, they picked up 3 eliminations. I saw they eliminated Strapped in the early game, so
Oh,
that is the trio that's kind of landing south of them now.
no one's really,
Which
I
means
know
they
the
should be
people in
pretty
zone
set up
actually.
here to continue on forwards.
What about your videos and
Badil just
stuff?
clearly paranoid about that pre-existing.
Jojo, what's
space
good, bro?
in the
What's good, what's
distance,
good?
Not trying
What is good?
to lose any more HP than necessary on this next rotate. But this is a team everybody wants to see them make it. Takada. Is it a global championship without Savage coming back on the last dance and making his way in? Reason, Badil, you know that they want that as well. And it's never going to be easy, but got a lot of catch up to do. Teams like Fredoxy, Pablo, and Chino, they're just trying to lock in some of the success that they had yesterday.
Alright,
Pretty
chat.
sick though, seeing Savage out
I'm
there
gonna mute my mic up
retirement.
now.
Now
I'm gonna
qualifying
let it
globals.
cook.
They got a ways to go, but hey, you can dream. Fredoxy in an incredible spot going into today, 3rd place. Still uncontested, even after the drop spot changes from yesterday. So, there's a kind of great opportunity for them with how Vico Veno and Flixie decided to drop.
Oh, looking like a decent knock there for Queasy's team. Merstash actually gonna be the first one to confirm it, but Veno, Flixie, Vico still at Magic Mosses. It appears as though they really wanted to gather whatever resources they could from inside of the vault. But now they may have overstayed their welcome as other teams in the area surrounding them, trying to catch them off guard. Noms in a completely separate engagement, but for Strokey's actually going to be on the receiving end of things. Focus backing up his teammates heavy, and he'll find 2 in Twy and Noms. But the damage has been done. Focus still a solo here. Avahalo Focus in the ultimate stare down. Only Focus has the HP advantage. Another Siphon just to guarantee that he can keep it. And Avahalo trying to slow things down, but they can only wait for so long. 2-tick zone, he's got to get a move on out of here.
Lost 2, found 2. Magic Mosses. This is the place you want to be if you're in Storm. But at the same time, now that you lost 2 of your teammates, look, on the bright side, at least they picked up like 6 eliminations. So even if this doesn't go their way, still a decent amount of points. Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. We saw them win a couple games yesterday. The only trio that won 2 matches. They're more comfortable enough converting these kind of good placements into wins. So depending on how this zone pulls and how they set themselves up, wouldn't be surprised if we see another one come out from them today.
They've got enough of a high point from this hill phase. They can just look back, spray, control teams, prevent teams from interfering with where they're heading. Vico, Flixie, Veno. They were looking for a fight though, coming out of Mosses, and they found it in Podesai's team. Just back-to-back elims on Vico.
Does not miss.
It makes total sense why so many people consider Vico to be one of the best fighters on this region currently.
They can put themselves in those situations that are normally incredibly risky.
Why can't I do this?
But with their fragging power, with their confidence, the majority of the time they are going to come out on top.
Yeah.
And you got to take those risks when you're behind, according to compared to first place by quite a significant amount. You need that big game.
Right, chat, I'm muting my mic for a bit, innit? Because, like,
before even getting to that
yeah.
game, we'll see where the zone pulls. But Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstash potentially in a good position if they go edge here and pull it, but little bit of back and forths.
Mustache has been getting active though, and it's not the only one. Frenek absolutely deleted though. Queasy's team just trying to make sure that they can even posture up for the height takes later on. We know that that's ultimately what they're after, and especially with the zone pulling north side, pulling into elevation, Takada. Veno's team kind of trailing a little bit behind everybody else, but they were approaching from that dead side. Not so sure it's gonna stay that way, but for the time being, another trio like Thomas's, they're just willing to try and take over what they can.
Yeah, I mean, here they're literally just building out into the edge of zone, because if it does pull back towards them, pull back to this snowy mountain, they will be in prime position with this elevation, so we're kind of banking on that happening. And it's also a great position to get those tags. Now, if it goes far, they'll still have a decent rotate. That's the good part about being elevated, but hopefully, you know, they'll pull it towards them. But so far, those teams that are on the water, the kind of staggered ones, Awahalo was a solo, obviously, it's just kind of getting picked on by the rest of the lobby.
It's a vicious cycle, but unfortunately for some of these teams, if you just get caught one step too far behind, it's always going to be difficult to actually work your way up that elevation. Teeny reminded that Thomas is above currently, but Veno, Vico, Flixie, Marius's team, just a couple opponents that are located slightly below where Uppel, Thomas, and Panzer currently sit. And Thomas trying to do what he can, but this team is clearly feeling pressured to try and get some surge. Queasy wanted to heal, but Queasy's not going to get that opportunity. That is a huge blow from Thomas's team. They want to try and get the finish, but Swizzy, Mustache just holding their cones, refusing to let Queasy go down just yet. Still, they find a separate elimination entirely elsewhere.
I'm not muting my mic yet, but
Queasy surviving through all of that is crazy.
This is a huge zone pull for them, too. They can literally go on top of those builds from Queasy, knowing he's been eliminated.
Oh, he got taken
Get
out.
a free height. Swizzy's gone down. This is perfect for Thomas HD, but terrible for Mustache now that he's left as a solo.
Mustache
Storm
is
Surge
solo.
taking him, both teammates gone. He needs to basically get an elimination here with all odds against him.
Way too many factors against him. 210 below the damage
yeah.
threshold as a solo. Doesn't even have any shield potions, but he makes it work anyway. Mustache, big elimination onto Teeny, and that's the lifeline he needed. Now has an opportunity to find even more surge. He's still sitting just below, but talk about a clutch up. Mustache just fully online, or as much as he can be. Vico, Flixie, Veno have just creep their way up onto this high ground though, Takada, and they're looking to possibly even make a connection towards the island if the zone permits.
This is interesting. I'm wondering, were they always on height on top of Thomas, or did they end up taking it? But either way, they're in prime position here. We'll see where it pulls, and it pulls, I mean, potentially around the island. They can conserve a lot of mats if they choose so. But Mustache, on the other hand, he's going to pop that chug. He's going to do what he can to tank a bit of Storm Surge, but he should find some options here on the rotate to do damage.
Oh, he's just going to play spoiler for Marius's team instead, catching him out, edits him down, and the floor just melting away from Marius. Nowhere left to run, but Mustache has done the impossible, it seems like. Now sitting only 4 above. He's still got quite a ways to go, and he's got to deal with the huge threat building in the low ground, all of this congestion. But Venya, Pixie, as a duo, it's going to be all that much more difficult to actually control the front side of low. They're trying to keep tabs on some of the build-up taking place behind them, but they want to move forward, and Akira could pay the price here. Pink, Nebs also in a duo position. Takada, everybody just losing their teammates along the way.
A lot of duos this time around. I do see 2 trios, though. Savage being one of them, as they got to be careful. The whole trio has been cracked. Luckily enough, not a single one has been knocked yet. Demus right beside them, knocking on their door. Full trio as well. As now the focus is, where's this zone gonna pull? Unfortunately for Vrico Venoflixi, not back to the island. It's going to pump power. As now these players have to rotate far. Going around the edge of the zone here can be crucial.
Thomas, though, content their current low ground position. They've got a little bit of frontside control. They're just trying to stay ahead, but they need a refresh. They're running so low on material. They can see all the commotion, and they've also got a fresh trio directly above them. Seti, Hari, Cammy. That could be a real threat. Thomas' team isn't careful, and Vanya, he's just trying to stay up. Yasin gonna be the victim here. You're not trapped. Vanya still making sure that he can actually break through here. And despite all odds, the double chug will build him a couple more placements potentially because the lobby is just clearing out so fast.
How is he still up? Vanya shouldn't be up right now, but he's continuing to go on in zone. Almost out of material. 6 builds left. It's all on wood. The Chug Jug is going to be popped. Recuperate a bit more of that. Take the med mist from the opponents while he chugs, but he gets taken down. Vico, Veno, Flixie continuing to maintain height. Not only did they take down the #1 trio going into this match, they want to close it out as well. Chino left alone. Back a zone, only 33 HP. Seconds away from getting eliminated as he gets stuck and taken down.
And Vico, Flixie, Veno, they're just continuing to maintain overhead. They might not have any more healing resources left on Vico, but it won't matter. All the heavy lifting is being done underneath them. They are just spraying these lower tiers. Tayson, Atrish, Chicho, they might have something to say though. This team is looking incredibly healthy despite being on the low ground. The zone is potentially pulling in their favor, and they've got a firm grasp of this front side. They've cut everybody else off, and they are just looking back, preventing teams from breaking through. Akira's gonna be forced to play the defensive walls here. Atris just tarping forward, trying to keep tabs on what's taking place above them, though. They gotta be really careful here. They got Kurama on their side point, and they're just gonna jump right in, but Atris gets the exchange. Tayson will fall. But Vico, Flixie, Veno, they're the ones who seem to be commandeering height still.
Oh, they're getting fraggy with it now. They only had 8 eliminations.
Flixie, Veno, Vico gonna win first game, chat.
Double digits. It's perfect for them having 2 trios on low. They battled out. It turned
Pretty
into
obvious
2 duos now with the advantage. Vico drops down. Bam! Slam right onto his opponent.
Vico. Oh!
Chicho falls right after.
Vico, Veno, Flixie.
I don't even know how many eliminations, Taco.
Yeah, swinging a miss
Absolute
initially there
cinema,
for
what a
Vico, but he
comeback
still found
though.
the grand slam
Killing
with
first
the
place
victory
and then getting a
royale
win.
here in Game 7. And
What
this
is
is
it?
exactly
What is?
what
I
they
feel
have
like
to
the
do,
third now.
Takada.
They're
It's
definitely
one
top
thing
5. They're
to
definitely not out.
eliminate
They're
Ping
definitely not
Blocks and
second now.
Malabuka off spawn. It's another to then convert that into
Absolute
a winning
cinema, bro.
position. And by doing so, they are cutting the gap significantly for that leaderboard.
This is exactly
keep playing
what
like
we
this,
want to
they're
see from a
easy to
top
win.
team in the EU FNCS Major Finals. They take out the competition in first place. They win the first match of day 2. What an incredible way to start it off, but we have to see that shaking up the leaderboard. Frankie Levin Mini, you gotta take it away.
I mean, I can't think of a better way to start day 2 of the Major 2 finals, boys, because that was incredible from Vico, Veno, and Flixie. They had our jaw on the floor in the first zone, and then they wrapped things up so beautifully in the endgame, Levin.
I mean, what a statement. The ultimate statement you can make here to start day 2 of the major finals. If you were gonna land on the first place team and say, we want that smoke, we want it all day long, you better come and win that game. That's what you better do.
Half an hour game.
I mean, honestly
What's the leaderboard
speaking,
on?
Billy, I wasn't expecting
leaderboard.
this, right? I wasn't expecting them to land directly on Malabuka at all. And then for them to actually go out and really just put them through it. Like, Malabuka's team looked stressed in that off sport.
Well, the thing is, Vico and Flixie have had a history of landing here this season. They've landed here in a couple of events, so although I'm very, very shocked, we almost shouldn't be in a way because they have had experience of this drop.
Team wants Malabuka. Vico and Flixie got second.
The way that they rolled through Malabuka's team, who have been
Wait,
landing here in
how did Veno? What?
This
How
season,
did
it looked like they
Ping
were the
won
team that were landing on the
Malibu
on
not
their
go
new
down
drop
place?
spot.
Hello?
So, I mean, the way that they did this is unreal.
50
I like the
point
way that they went
difference
about the,
between
final elimination
second
as
and
well,
third
just
is
using that scanner
crazy.
to find out Ping right there and just.
So the one person who's watching it, do you want a cookie? No, I'm joking. Anyway, I am going to do AFK and this is stream.
They still had to do a little bit of work in mid-game, but wow, that was amazing.
Alright.
I mean, I feel like I'm watching the Veno Vico Flixie that we all thought
Bye-bye.
would just dominate Major 1. right? You know, the weeks leading into Major 1 finals when they felt unbeatable, unstoppable, those are the vibes they gave me in this game, the way they cleared things out. We know what Veno and Flixie can do, but Vico in this game to close things out was just magnificent. The best fragger in EU is the title he's held for quite a while now. And there's been some different people sort of trying to take him on, right? Different people coming into the fray saying, hey, look, I might be the best fragger. It might not be you, Vico. He's trying to shut up all those people today. I mean, the closing moment, just to have that confidence, hitting the shots needed. I mean, this team is something else. Again, I said yesterday, if they can pull off what they're trying to pull off this weekend, it's going to be one of the greatest performances we've seen in an EU major final. The way this is going is a different turn I weren't expecting, but it's still going on that trajectory if they can continue this form.
And this isn't just a victory royale for Vico, Veno and Flixie. The way that they won this has major implications on the leaderboard and on our number 1 trio, Malabuka, Ping and Wox. We'll be talking more about that after this break. It is Championship Sunday of FNCS Europe Major 2, and we've started with an absolute barnstormer. And in fact, we should really take a look at the leaderboard first of all before we discuss what happened in Game 7, because there were huge implications. Vico, Veno and Flixie wiped our leaderboard toppers, Wox, Malabuka and Ping at Lone Wolf Lair to start off the game, and then they went and took the victory royale, which means there's just 17 points separating these teams now. There's two questions. The first one being for you, Mini Miner. What does this mean for Mali's team? Do you think that they're going to have a bit of a mental block? They're going to have the shadow of Veno on their backs going forward?
Yeah, I mean, they have to, right? That has to give them a bit of a wobble. They've now just sat in lobby for 25 minutes, having to think through what they need to do next. That's definitely thrown a spanner in the works to them. The big question is now what's going to happen next game, I think, as well. You know, are Vico, Ven, and Flixi actually going to go ahead and do that? Are they going to play those mind games? I don't know. I don't know what I would do in this situation, but they seem to have it on lock.
This is the beauty of Fortnite, right? Because after yesterday, everyone was going 100-point gap after day one. Is crazy, right? And just like that, it's all changed, right? Yeah. 17 points, nothing now going on for the next 5 games. So close. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, do you just keep going there because it worked so well in that game? I feel like we just can't predict what Veno, Vico, Flixi will do because they've just been so unpredictable all weekend long, including that game. Whatever they do, I know they've cooked up something. That's the reality of it. We can trust that whatever they choose to do will be effective.
Well, we've got 5 more courses to taste as the day continues, but let's talk about Vanyak, Pixie, and Marius. Vanya in particular was making hero plays to try and clutch them inside the top 10. I think he managed 12 in that last game, but it's still a blistering start for these guys, Levin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at these guys, and again, they were a team that I feel like just goes under the radar. It's just a very, very good team here in EU. I remember back in the day when Vanya used to play and compete in EU in duos, you know, he was always a top talented player. And we were always like, if he could get some tier 1 teammates with him, he's going to shine. And obviously he played with Swizzy, finally picked up an FNCS win. And in this 2 team, he's got Marius and Pixie with him. Marius, very unfortunate there to get taken down by Mustache. But, you know, when you have Marius and Pixie alongside, you know, a player like Vanya, you know, they're always destined for great things. How he survived here, Mini, was mental. I thought he was 100% going down, and he just managed to just stay alive, clutch out some extra placement points.
Yeah, we spoke about it a lot last major as well with Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache about how these important solo clutches can have a big impact because these guys now need to keep up with the top end of the leaderboard if they want any chance of winning this FNCS. So those sort of performances are so important, especially now if Vico, Ven, and Flixi are going to be landing in different places. Maybe they're going to continue landing on Malabuka. That could swing either way, so they need to keep in that top 3.
Tayson, Chris, and Cheeto, we didn't get to see much of a big performance from them yesterday. However, their fortunes did start to improve over the first 6 games. And now I feel like we've seen the best from them yet after they switched their drop spot to Kappa Mini Minor.
Yeah, well, they switched their drop spot midway through yesterday. They found a lot of success now there at Kappa. I think they were uncontested in that game as well, Evan. So a lot, it seems to be going their way right now. And this is the sort of performance that we expect to see from a team like Tayson, Chicho, and Haris. We know how good Chicho and Haris are. We know how good Tayson can be in these high-pressure situations. We just didn't get to see it for half of yesterday. And now they're sneakily coming up into that top 8. Could they be a Globals qualification? We'll have to see.
If they keep this up, absolutely. Their form since switching to Kappa has been so strong. It sometimes feels wrong, like talking about competitive Fortnite EU, like the top level of it, not mentioning Tayson. So I'm glad to see their team picking up a bit of form, and maybe they will push their way in and call for Globals.
This is what we want to see, guys. A hotly contested day 2. So let's head to game 8 now with Taco and Takata.
Thank you, Frankie. Look, to set the stage, there was a 142-point difference from Veno's trio and Malabuka's trio going into game 1 today. Now there's just a 17-point difference after 1 match. The issue is, Taco, if they keep contesting each other, it might go back and forth.
It could go back and forth, but if we play back the flashbacks from the DIP finals in week 5, that's something that I think Veno is more than willing to stake and wait and like try to, you know, take his chances with in comparison to Malabuka's team. But they had that entire match to sit out, right? So surely they're thinking about if they get contested again off spawn, how are we going to tackle that fight?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a minor factor.
No one's watching, man.
You get elimed off spawn. You got like 23 minutes. What? Maybe you're in creative doing 1v1 something. Vico, Veno, Flixi just got like a 15 elim win. I mean, that's gonna boost up your confidence, boost up your energy. And I didn't see Vico missing any shots. So, I mean, they're gonna be going in on fire for this off spawn engagement. Once again, if that's what they decide to do, right? We saw them switch things up, but to be honest, I think it's what's gonna happen. We don't have to wait long. The 8th game is ready to go.
I'll put that there. Alright, chat, I'll share the strand that I made.
It's just gotta be one of those stomach drop sensations, though, if you are Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, because everybody is such a fierce competitor, right? But when you are just watching the team that wiped you, knowing that this is probably the only team in the
Alright, chat, I'll share the food that I made.
Threaten
it's like, mute the live stream. Alright, so as you can see, I have made a lap. And inside the lab is some sauce. And with the sauce, there is 5 chicken nuggets. Very good, very nice. It's really hot though, so I want to eat it yet, but yeah. That's really good click farming. Wow.
Lone Wolf, they are not letting up, and Malabuka, Wax, and Ping, they're gonna have to formulate some kind of a response because they can't afford.
I'm gonna mute my mic guys while I eat, and then
fresh match without them.
yeah.
And it drops. Flixie lands first. Vico, Veno, they've claimed the high ground position here at Lone Wolf. They have that positional advantage. Will they be able to take this fight fast enough? Will they get enough shields? There's so many factors to these early game engagements. But ultimately, if you put in the work, if you put in the prep, if you hit your shots, it looks like both trios right now are going to be quite even on shield. It's all up to who can make the better play.
Oh no. Oh no, that was almost disastrous for Vika, but Malabuka just gonna get the shots off in time. So Vika's going to survive. Malabuka now dropping. Wanted to challenge some of these lower floors. Walks, but it's Ping knocked yet again. Malabuka's team taking the first casualty here. And Walks, Malabuka, they've got to go on a recovery tour now. Vico, total control of the high ground. Even if Malabuka and Walks try to escape the mansion, they're going to have to deal with Vico. But Flixie, him having been eliminated now means that this is a clean 2 versus 2. Walks trying to deal with Vico and Veno at the same time. Probably way too much pressure. So he'll try to create a little bit of space. Vico and Veno still hunting though. But Wax, he just wants to play the quiet game.
I wonder if any of the trios kind of, you know, north of Lone Wolf or in the surrounding areas are going to think, is this a good time?
Sharp is buzzing. 5 big
trios? Is it a option? How long are these fights going to take? It's all about looking at the elimination feed, seeing how it plays out. But if you look right now, you know that both teams have lost a player. Looks like Vico Veno actually the superior position. They're going to farm match. They're doing what they can, but might even potentially try and bring back Flixie. Even if they do so, will they get beamed out the sky? It's kind of forcing them to drop down and be on even ground here. As they were trying to do whatever possible to stop this, but I think they're gonna get it.
Veno's holding. They don't have the materials to jump in and challenge it, even with Flixie getting knocked. He's fully covered. That's why Vico was tarping out in the first place. He tunneled out a safety.
I was click farming, my mic was muted, so
obviously they want to go for a revive, but Malabuka Walks. They can't afford to waste any more time. They're trying to close in. It's still a 2 versus 2 scenario. Veno nearly getting the better end of Malabuka there, but Vico down to his final build. Vico's just going for the immediate battle, and he wins it out. Walks.
Oh wait, no way they've killed him again.
Malabuka also about to join his teammate.
If they kill Malabuka's drill, then they basically won.
Veno
they're gonna win.
and Flixie are just waiting. Flixie watching his teammates essentially clutch this one up.
Still, no.
Malabuka though,
Finally
shutting down Vico. I would not believe it had we not just seen it, Takata, but Vico doesn't actually win. I thought this was all
Flixie's dead, I didn't realize.
Veno now has to ensure that he takes out Malabuka. They need to play for the reboots. And Malabuka,
he hit them. He's got no ammo.
He just had to use these shield potions. But he's trying to dodge around, even taking
the
launch pad. He's got a little bit of help indirectly, and Veno
would
fall here, but he's still chasing Malabuka. These guys refusing to budge, but they spent too long. It is catastrophe now for both our teams.
No. Not even a single trio comes out winning in this situation. The fight took too long. The players in the surrounding area, like I was mentioning, they saw on the Elim feed that these teams were going back and forth. It wasn't a quick wipe. It's the perfect third-party opportunity. It wasn't just one trio. It was 2 different trios that realized this. What a tragic fall for both Veno and Malabuka's trio. Scroll, eye drop in sky now. Gonna try and fight the other third-partying trio, Grippe. As the longer these trios take, the more risky the situation is gonna get.
This might have just bailed out Malabuka entirely, though. Didn't actually see him getting cleaned up. in the same fashion as Veno there towards the end, so he might have even scurried off elsewhere, might be able to play for a reboot later on. Definitely worst case scenario for Veno, but high risk, high reward is definitely seeming to be the name of the game as far as those two teams are concerned. iDrop, Scroll, and Sky, though, they need to just establish Surge the same way that they've been doing. They loved fighting all throughout yesterday. That was how they primarily established their Surge, and seems to maintain their intention here.
There's a few things to think about. One, Malabuka's still up, so there's potential for a reboot later on. The other is that first and second place, so Malabuka and Veno, are, you know, only a difference of 17 points, but second and third is a difference of 64 points. So if Malabuka goes down here, that's a huge opportunity from second or third, sorry, to seventh, eighth, even just the top 10 in general, to close that gap between first and second. And these are two trios that can make it happen.
Close call there for Glubshy. Nearly found himself eating a tag that was going to be a big problem. Fortunately, it didn't go through. I like this, though, from Sky. Just maintaining the high ground position. Also making sure to look out, see whether or not teams are trying to join the mix-up that's taking place here at Lone Wolf. But Sky, Scroll, iDrop, they might have gotten the damage that they were after. Whether or not they continue to re-engage is a separate conversation, but Malabuka is still lingering the bottom end of Lone Wolf Lair, and it's probably going to be very difficult for him to actually work his way out of this POI, since he knows that there is a team controlling the high ground. You just get so much view from where Sky and Scroll were last seen that Malabuka doesn't have any other options but to just hide. Hope that these teams are able to clear out, and then they can try to make a play.
Yeah, it's a matter of time here. You know, do they wait for the Lone Wolf to go in zone, go there, even go into zone to find something? While that plays out, though, we'll look over at Fredoxy, Chino, and Pablo. Double chugs, hopeful height battle. Dexy, Artist, and Huddy. This is the trio that I believe originally was going to contest Tayson today. But it looks like they're up against Fred, and it's not quite going their way as Artist gets knocked. Now a 3v2.
Some of these teams just getting so disoriented in the mix-ups. But Pablo finds a clean shot onto Dexy. Just another elimination. So many elims, even for Fredoxy's team, already at 6. They are clearly trying to avoid having to deal with any sort of surge woes later on. Surely this is enough damage to carry them through their mid-game rotates.
Surely, right?
Surely.
Seeing what Malabuka decided to do, it seems like, yeah, Lone Wolf still has 2 trios there, so he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'll find another reboot.
Oh, no.
But, I mean, there are some trios close by. I'm wondering if he even has all the cards, if he's going to go for the gold route. A lot of options, but the issue is, you know, in this meta, the odds of having trios inside of the Storm is significantly higher. I mean, even comparing it to last season, there was a 68% increase with the amount of time spent in the Storm. So you really do have to be careful when you're rotating through here. You're never safe, but we'll see if Malabuka can make something happen.
Definitely not going to be an easy endeavor. A couple other teams, though. Kudo just stuck. Nowhere left to run. Misha's team finding that elimination leads me to believe that something has gone horribly wrong for Pink and Nebs, considering that they weren't with him. Sure enough, leaderboard top right going to reveal it. Pink, Nebs, Kiro are currently 5th place team, having been freshly eliminated. Now means that other teams can try to leapfrog their way into that position instead. Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache, though, they're just focused on their own methods of success.
Good news is they still have Seaport on con. You know, they don't have a Vico Veno Flixie camp in their vault this time around, so a little less pressure in that sense. Can play more what they have been used to playing throughout the season. And hey, looks like Malabuka got, you know, step 1 of 5 complete, right? He brought his teammates back into the match, but now not only do they have to recuperate their shield, their mats, their loot, they're probably gonna have to get a bit of damage. Malabuka already had those eliminations, but even so, having to rotate from Outlaw, you know, the job's not finished.
They're definitely going to have to spend some time looking to build back up from their starting point. And yeah, it's always going to be difficult, but when you play for the reboot, you're also letting everybody else in the area know, including teams that may be struggling for surge along the way. And Malabuka just trying to get out as quickly as possible. Walks looking for whatever whites he can find. They are just so split currently.
What I don't like here is if the opposing trio chooses to take that geyser and find, you know, one of the players caught off guard. If they see walks in the shoreline, all 3 of them land on him. You know, there's quite a risk there, but saw a little bit of what happened to Demon's Dojo. Vanya Maris and Pixie, this could be a big game for them. They're the closest to second place, sitting in 3rd. So Vico's already gone. If Malabuka doesn't make out of zone here, this is the trio that has a big opportunity to make it in. Actually, with the current points, including, you know, this match, 4th place alongside Pablo, Ferdoxy, and Shino there. So they're both really close.
They're not looking to have a repeat of what went down, though, in Major 1. They want to be the ones in control of the leaderboard, Takada. It's definitely about the Global's position, but winning and becoming the Blade of Champions holder yourself is an entirely separate feeling, and that's one that this team is certainly chasing after with all their might.
Looks like Akira, X, and Kararma are going to be at the opposing end here. Just kind of taking shots back and forth. I don't think we'll see a fight come out from this. Okay, I only see Malabuka, which is slightly concerning, but his teammates are up. It's just Twi's trio's making it quite difficult for them to get back in. But, you know, on the other hand, it's given them a bit of damage, which they do need. So to be fair, it's not the worst thing that could happen. This is just not looking good, though. To be honest, like...
You're at Canyon's Crossing, and the zone is pulling towards the northern side, where the elevation is at. Even if they make it in, they still have to deal with all the struggles that are involved with scaling up elevation, dealing with their material counts. Veno's strategy has just set them so far back that even the initial survival, if you want to consider that a win, isn't actually proving to be all that much in their favor, because they are just about to hit the range of placement points, and there's not that many, and they're going to need way more. You want to look at consistent top 5 placements.
Yeah, I mean, I'll basically call that a draw, right? We had 1-0 for Vico Venoflixi and now a 1 for the draw. They both kind of didn't win in this situation. Now, hey, if Malabuka's able to come back, get a decently, you know, solid game, even just make it the end game, that actually won't be too bad at all. At least they can continue to kind of increase that gap, but we'll see. For the trios inside a zone, Kamiseri Haru didn't have that challenge in the early game. They're positioned up quite well to kind of pick off these teams rotating on in. We'll see where this next zone does end up pulling, but I mean, so far pretty chill.
They can take a few extra ticks of storm if needed. We're also hanging around that edge line of Seaport, so teams that are having to deal with maybe rotating over the water with Seti and Cammy's position, they've got that leverage of holding down the bridge. Thomas on the island with that mythic drum gun. That's
harder than it looks. Like, those tags, when they're running around building that far away in a major finals lobby with the amount of players that are up, you know, those aren't easy shots, but I mean, it's Thomas HD. Malabuka walks, though. This is what they need. They need to find a surprise. They need to find a refresh. Malabuka hits the initial shot. Does get a knock. He doesn't even go down. This could be it, Taco.
This could be huge for Malabuka, but first, they've got to close it out for next team, though. Completely sabotage from where we're currently looking. And Dinas will be fully wiped. Just camping the launch pad. A bit diabolical by Malabuka, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and you have to respect the strategy here. They had to do something to come up with a little bit of a win after what took place in the early.
You said diabolical. That's the perfect play. I mean, if you're thinking of odds of where trios are going to end up, a launch pad in a location like this for common rotations is the perfect spot. And not only did not a single player get knocked, they were able to get multiple finishes. I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to see from Malabuka's trio. They are somehow managing to slowly but surely turn this game around. I drop Sky and Scroll, on the other hand, still below.
Just trying to make sure that Fnaim, Moneymaker, Faded don't actually try to focus in on where they're currently seated. A little bit lower down. They're gonna work their way into this next edge of zone, though. Costing them a lot of mats, though. They're probably hoping for better tags, but Hydra from out of nowhere, completely out of left field even, just gets knocked. Zara, Zangi, and Peterbor have closed into their current position. Double revive will be enough to get Hydra back into the action, but they're still 5 below. Time is ticking, and the clock is working against them. Scroll trying to make up for the lost minutes. They want a little bit more damage, but they've got to spend time instead healing. And Sky gonna pay the ultimate price here. He wanted to see if he could get that little bit of extra surge for his teammates, but instead, a 1 versus 3, just too aggressive. And he'll be punished for it. Zara and Zangi, likely another team that was also incredibly low on their surge, but now, Scroll, Eyedrop, they don't get a chance to think about it. They're gonna try to get some shots off, but with the armored van, it's gonna be very difficult, and Scroll still has to deal with all the teams ahead of him at Kappa Kappa.
And they have to, yeah, make that rotation, right? Hey, at least we didn't get a full north zone. I mean, we're east here, but it's about mid-map, so not too bad, not too bad. Malabuka walks Ping in the zone, finally. 5 elims on the board now, and despite getting those eliminations, still only 55 above. But this is honestly more than they could even ask for with the amount of materials and loot that they have. Now it's just about keeping it up. They might not get the best zone position. They might not have a bunch of extra loot, but at least they are in the game.
Might have to use that Memmis grenade sooner rather than later, though. But Walks trying to hold on to it, trying to see if he can punish Peterbor's team. We saw them spend a couple of moments tangling with eye drops because they needed that surge damage. But Walks now gonna nestle Malabuka's team at just 124 above. They still need to find some form of an elimination refresh. They want the elims, and they are punishing these teams that were just slower to the rotate than themselves. Great elimination, though. That's definitely going to build up a little bit of a buffer zone here. Juicy, Andy, and Finchek, though, look like they want to try and get involved. And consider that they're further ahead than Malabuka's team, they might be able to actually punish them once Malabuka's team leaves this boxed up position.
Yeah, they have a lot of builds in front of them, so, you know, normally if you want to try and go on congested side, sometimes it's not possible. They're gonna have to follow through the builds that are already placed and do what they can to make it in, despite there being a lot of trios there already. But for Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy, they are quite low, kind of under the bridge almost, but at least they're safe here.
Depending on how this next zone pulls, it might actually work to their advantage, because then they could just look to layer swap and play on top of the bridge compared to where other teams might get stuck on the other side of the waterway. Still, so many teams starting to really pile up here. Opal, Panzer, and Thomas making the most of this hill face, though. But they want to get a move on. A little bit short on that bat rotate, but it gets the job done. Thomas and Panzer, Opal. They've got a little bit of damage above the threshold, but they definitely need some more.
Malabuka's been knocked, though. Walks has been fully eliminated. Both players down as Ping is left as a solo now. with all the pressure on him. 91 above. I mean, they were able to get a bit of eliminations, a slight amount of placement. But I mean, they've still got good materials. Well, Ping still got good materials. The only issue is with multiple trios focusing you, you got to either get close to another trio and, you know, make them get shots taken on them as well, or just hope you get people to stop shooting at you. But
he's so obviously a solo. They are going to keep shooting at this man. They do not want to let an individual survive these circumstances. Does spot a little bit of loot though. That might be slight saving grace. Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache though have seemingly postured up above the bridge now. They took their opportunity to get that overhead space, and this is very familiar territory for them, considering that they land at Seaport City, Shining Span right next door, committing a lot of materials here, making sure that they can just have a huge metal lining to peek out from.
This is going to be an impressive rotate if he pulls this one off. I mean, he's got to swim. There's a lot of trios in front of him. If he can catch a player off guard, could be a massive refresh, but he's not able to connect the crucial shots. And Thomas HD with the drum gun is going to be able to take him out.
But Thomas was so split from where Panzer and Uppel are at that Uppel doesn't have the same luck as Thomas. He has been knocked very soon to be eliminated if a team can't get the job done. But Thomas, he's not going to be able to jump forward any further. This water zone is just so vicious. So many teams having to commit so much material. They just don't have the time to think about where they're headed next. They're just trying to get into the safety of the zone itself. Panzer might be able to build up a couple of placements here.
For the players on the edge here, it's the perfect opportunity to just kind of rain down from above on all the solos, trios that are trying to make their way in. And it's going to be Cammy, Seti, and Hari who successfully have taken that high ground. This is prime positioning for them. It wouldn't even matter to them if it pulled back. It would be honestly perfect with the builds already placed and how difficult they would make it for the trios down below. There's only 9 trios left in this match. Devastating zone.
Queasy's team, though, is still kind of hovering that secondary height position for Doxy, Pablo, Chino. They'll tank a little bit of storm damage if it means getting into more optimal position. Pixie and Vanya, though, make that just Pixie because Vanya has been knocked. Pixie now watching in horror. Can't do anything for his teammates. He might not even be able to save himself once he's quick. 3 reaction times, but Jewel, Sangil, Tidy, they've got the advantage. And Pixie, he'll be forced to just play inside the storm, hope that this Chug Jug can get him a couple of additional placement spots.
Oh.
But it is a steep rotation, and as a solo, somebody is bound to notice him. He could look for a big pump shot, but it would take a lot of guts for him to pull it off, and Height has already noticed. But he sees the knock body. He wants to go for the 1v1, but he won't get that opportunity. Comeback falling directly next to him. Everybody getting cleared up.
Said we messed up. The zone didn't go north this game, so we got to make every single moving zone just keep going more north. For Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they're able to knock down one. Big refresh to allow them to continue on forwards. Cammy, Seti, Hari starting to drop down a little bit here. They could be running low on materials and potentially looking for a refresh, but every trio, every player down below on minimal materials, so little to work with. It's going to be all-out chaos.
Mustache completely ran out of mats. Hari, Cammy, Seti, they might have height control, but the zone, it's pulling back up the hill face slightly, and Queasy's team, they committed to the low. Queasy's team now stuck, and they're going to be collected victims of where this RNG is working against them. But for Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they might have something to say. They might be able to steal this one away from Seti, Cammy, and Hari. And Fordoxy just narrowly peeking out. Pablo doesn't have any builds left, though. They're going to have to fight their way through this one. Darm, Pix, completely cut off from each other, and that's going to be another elimination added on for Pablo, Chino, and Fredoxy. They are making it work. Despite not having any mats to build with Takada, they are still clearing out this low front side. And Pablo, Fredoxy, Chino, they know we've just got to stay as close to each other as possible. There aren't that many players remaining. If they can deal with Pix and Demas, it could be the difference maker here. Pix will be collected, but Chino, having been eliminated, now makes it all the easier for Seti, Kami. They could maybe make something big happen here, but Pablo, he is scrambling. Just so much pressure coming in from above. Kami, Hari, Seti, they know that there is only 2 players standing in the way of them in this next Victory Royale, and they are hunting Fredoxy and Pablo down. The advantages are just so steeply in their favor. They've got the high ground. Fredoxy and Pablo surely completely out of materials, just clinging on to whatever HP they have left. But Seti, he'll be the first to fall. He's gonna play Disruptor. Kami, Hari, now going for the backup, but Fredoxy, he might have done enough, but no! Kami falls, and Hari's not gonna be able to do it! Pablo is gonna be the one to seal the deal here! Fredoxy's team had zero business winning this one out, and yet Pablo making sure the job gets done.
How do they let that happen? How do they let that happen, Taco? The 2v3, not only that, you said they gotta be running low on materials. Kami said, Hari, we're also running low, forced to drop down, and somehow, Fredoxy, Pablo, they got the job done. They take home the win. What a way to close out this match. Going into the game in 4th place, 1st and 2nd, getting knocked out. This is exactly what they needed to push themselves into that possibility of taking home this tournament.
It's just Fredoxy at the end there. He just had the singular tag he needed, the damage that he had to apply in that closing moment to make it so that Pablo could fully find that last elimination. But it's always tough when you get tangled up in those kinds of positions for both teams. Kudos, though, to Fredoxy's for holding on.
Oh, they did not miss a shot. Fred dropped down low, took out Seti. Pablo gets the back-to-back from Kami onto Hari. What a way to finish it off. I mean, I'm lost for words, but I know 3 people that have got plenty, so let's head on over to the desk.
No, you don't understand. I don't have plenty after watching that. I don't know how you boys are faring, but oh my gosh, my jaw was on the floor as it has been multiple times this weekend. I didn't think it could get any lower, but I think I've got a bruise 11-2K because that end game was wild.
I still don't know how that happened. I can't be so... There's no reason why Kami, Seti, and Hari should be losing that 3v2. I mean, come on, look, Fredoxy, Pablo, this game was so crucial for them, right? Because the 2 top dogs at the top of the leaderboard went down. The 2 top dogs left room open for that 3rd place team in Chino, Pablo, and Fredoxy to come through. And what a better game to do it, right? They had to win this game to put themselves into contention. And I think this would actually put them into 1st place on that leaderboard. But how do they win that 3v2, Mini? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely insane. I think it was Seti that dropped down a little bit prematurely there. Just didn't really work out for those guys.
He got
chopped down. Was it chopped? Yeah, that's what happened. But for these guys, I mean, Pablo Wingu there at the end has to be said. He was hitting some huge shots onto the trio on height. And just the way that these guys play these end games, we spoke about it. Is this now the time where we should start considering this team as a potential FNCS champion here in Chapter 16-2? Absolutely unreal here. But they deserve it if they are going to do it because they've been so consistent all weekend.
I mean, I just would have never thought we'd be going into game 9 of the FNCS finals here in EU with Pablo, Chino, and Fredoxy as the team in 1st place. There's still plenty of Fortnite to be played, but this team might just win Denmark's 1st FNCS. I don't want to speak too prematurely, but that's on the cards now. They're in contention after this game.
I feel like maybe we need to be sending Vico, Venno, and Flixie down to Moss Meadows.
Just go back, boys, please. Honestly.
Yeah. Let's just keep the drama coming. I've got my cup of tea. I'm ready for it, boys. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Game 2.
take the lead, I swear it'll cost you. I'm a winner, real talk, money bags bigger, head held high, I'm a champion with some shimmer. I'm a winner, real talk, ain't no beginner. Step to the throne, I'm a king, not a quitter. I'm a winner, real talk, money bags bigger, head held high, I'm a champion with some shimmer. I'm a winner, real talk, ain't no beginner. Step to the throne, I'm a king, not a quitter. Hey. Smile my way through life like it's easy. Most days I can't fake what I'm feeling. I've had success, but still pretty needy. I've got skill, don't need to be lucky. I like winning, fame, and the money. Try to take the lead, I swear I will own ya.
Guys, I didn't realize I booked multiple tickets to the cinema today because we are seeing picture after picture Mini Minor and I've run out of popcorn. I mean, where do we even start with what happened in that last game? Because you can see in the standings, it's making so much of a difference. All of these trios trying to surprise each other now. And we're definitely surprised by the fact that Pablo, Fredoxy and Chino are #1. They came from the last chance qualifiers, got Mars Meadows surprisingly uncontested, and now they're just doing everything they can with it to make a claim for global championships and the Blade of Champions.
This is interesting. You know, 6 points ahead of Malibuca's team now. If Malibuca's team do go down to Vico Flixie, if they do end up landing there, what will Vico, Venom, Flixie do? It looks like Chino, Pablo, Wingo, and Fredoxy just being so consistent right now. So maybe we end up seeing the off-spawn fight that we were expecting at the beginning of the weekend. But for a lot of our teams there, lots of moving up in the standings.
I honestly, this is getting too crazy. This is a 4-horse race right now because Vanya's trio, you have to remember, they're, you know, in the 400-point range. They are behind, but they have an opportunity there because the two teams ahead of them at any given point, like we saw last game, can just go down and get very minimal points, right? And so then it becomes a race between them and Pablo's trio, right? Look at that. If we have another game like that where Malibuca and Vico go down, it's going to get tough. I mean, that game for Malibuca is a bit bittersweet, right? Because they're able to get out of the off-spawn situation after all the third parties came in. Narrowly, though. Very narrowly. I think Veno's trio very much should have won that. They had so many opportunities to just clean them up. But Malibuca kept on fighting, and he reboots his team. He gets them back in the game. But from there, I mean, it's just too scuffed. They can't get a foothold on the game, and so they get very minimal points out of it.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but, you know, they did better than Vico, Venom, Flixie, and for them, when they're getting landed on by them, that's all they need to do. They just need to keep bettering them, and that's what they're doing right now. So, yeah, for those guys, not an ideal game, but they need to start being a little bit more convincing off spawn. I think winning these fights a little bit quicker to not allow those third parties to come on through and to clean up.
Feels like we were talking a lot about Malibuca's team's consistency yesterday, the fact that the lowest they placed was an 8th. But now my eyes are on Marius, Pixie and Vanya Levin, because they seem to have these clutch plays where they manage to just get themselves the highest placement point possible even when things are going wrong.
Absolutely, and that's what you need. That's what you need in an FNCS win and run, right? Vanya knows that very well. When he won his last year with Swizzy, he had 2 amazing clutches that were able to sort of help secure them the win. And that's what you're going to need today if you're going to be able to catch up with some of the people ahead of them. And they have that ability, right? I think that's never been a question when you have Marius, Vanya, and Pixie on the same team. But that consistency to keep playing in these end games when some of their top competitors might not be, right? And that's really the problem here. I would like to see more of these end games where it is all 3 of them as a trio, right? We talk about that. They're making it there, but it's a bit too scuffed at times. Maybe 1 or 2 of them still up.
Yeah, and I think they might be in the perfect position almost to sort of take home this FNCS, because they're almost the team that nobody's really concerned about, right? They're the quiet team just outside of that big top 3. So if Vico, Veno, Flixi keep contesting Malabuka, then maybe they go and contest Fred Oxy's team. If these guys can keep being consistent, keep picking up those placements, they could find themselves with it all to play for in game number 12.
Do you see this as a team that might take risks the same way that the likes of Vico, Veno and Flixi would mini minor? Do you think they're going to change anything significantly just to try and eke themselves up into that #1 spot?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen for these guys. I think they're going to stick to what they know because it's been working out. And as I mentioned, they're landing, you know, sort of towards the north side of where Vico, Ven and Flixi now are landing there at Lone Wolf Lair. So they're going to be enjoying that third-party potential and hopefully for them getting more surge. So I don't think they're going to really switch too much up because you have to remember they're in the global spots as well. So it's not like, you know, they're all out going for an FNCS win. They also want to qualify for globals, so the risk might not be worth it.
Vanya's tasted victory before. I wonder how hungry he is for it right now. We're going to head to game number 9, though, because the battle bus is ready with Taco and Takata.
I'd imagine incredibly hungry. I mean, everybody wants to be the Blade of Champions wielder, and that is exactly what's at stake here for so many of our teams, especially within that top 4, Takata. Things are getting incredibly narrow. When the points are this tight-knit, anything could happen.
It's insane. I mean, NA had an insane finish on day 1. EU, the script writer, said we gotta match the hype here. On day 2, absolute change, and we don't have to wait long for game 9. So let's get into it.
Veno's trio has certainly been the catalyst for so much of the mayhem that's unfolded in day 2 of our Major 2 finals, Takata, but other teams are certainly taking notice. Lone Wolf Lair, if that off spawn doesn't get cleaned up very rapidly, the third-party exchanges are only going to continue to build up because teams always want to take advantages when presented with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they gotta finish that fight so quickly, but it's difficult to do. I mean, it's 2 of the best trios in the region, and here we go once again. I'm gonna call it a 101 draw on the most recent match. Veno, Vico, Flixi took the first one, and once again, Veno, Vico, Flixi get the drop on the top of the building. I believe Vico had a shotgun last match, and I didn't see a lot of Malabuka's trio with them, so we'll see how loot goes this time around.
Third time's the charm, though, for Veno, Vico, and Flixi. Malabuka just lurking outside the doorways. Vico and Flixi just clearing out the floors, but it's a close-in. Walks completely caught off guard.
Whoa.
Vico immediately jumping into the box with his teammates, and that is 1 pick already exchanged. Vico, Flixi, Veno, they're just going to continue tearing through now as a trio. There's no reason to separate. Flixi and Veno have taken different directions, though. They're going to reunite and ping immediately. The moment he exposes himself, just gets eliminated for it. 2 already in favor of Vico. He is out on a rampage after what went down in game 2, but that is the time to elimination. You are after other teams. If they were thinking about Lone Wolf Lair, you're gonna have to reorient where you want to go, because that's already said and done. It's gonna be tough to actually break into where Veno, Vico, and Flixi are at.
Perfectly executed engagement there. That's how you gotta do it. Now we'll see if they can get another huge game. I mean, the game that they were able to finish off spawn that quickly in the first match, they won the whole game. So if they can repeat that, it's going to put them back into first place. For Savage, Reason and Vadil, on the other hand, Reason has been eliminated, now leaving them as a duo, but they do know there's a whole trio down on the southern side of the split there, so we'll see how that plays out. But Vanya, Pixie, Marius doing what they've been doing on contested at Flooded.
And they've definitely had a pretty successful day 2 so far, but obviously they're not going to be satisfied with their current position. Again, all of these teams are shooting to actually be the champions of this season. It's not just that global championship bus ticket that you're solidifying, but the prize pool differences are also going to come into play. And for many of these teams, it's just the pride element too.
It's insane to think too. Ferdoxy, Pablo, and Chino qualified through the last chance qualifier. Only 3 trios make it through that final opportunity. And now they're in first place of the major finals, from last chance qualifier to potentially getting the first major FNCS win for Denmark. I mean, this is an insane storyline that we have building up. We are on game 9 of 12. We've seen how much can change in just a single match, but they are en route for something legendary.
But they might be suffering from success if they're not careful. Have to remember, if Veno, Vico, and Flixie are able to replicate their Game 7 success, find that Victory Royale, I would not be the least bit surprised to see them contest Mass Meadows and shut down Ferdoxy's team.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, you know, they have been switching it up so much. Imagine we get to game 12. First and second is basically between Ferdoxy and Veno. They just land Mass Meadows, no, and go for it. Bring on a show. Hey, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll see what does end up happening, but that could be insane. For Swizzy, Queasy, and Maristache, looks like they are just kind of doing their standard Seaport base here on this hill that they always tend to go to and take shots where they can.
Just trying to keep heads up. Advantages over Thomas's team with the surge bases. Chino, Pablo, and Ferdoxy south of Mass Meadows, but on the move. Always get a little bit scared driving when you're the one that's stuck in the back of the armored van. Maybe a little bit afraid if Ferdoxy or Chino aren't good drivers that they're gonna send you flying from outside of that vehicle. But they just wanted the safety rotate. There's no one really around to prevent them from playing edge of zone, but they're willing to actually dip back into it because they want to go for the fight at Hopeful Heights. And Ferdoxy creeping up, fully aware of the fact that there's still a team nearby, and it's going to be Cheatons. And they don't want to allow them to exit Hopeful Heights, at least not without playing a part and looking for some knocks or elims, trying to build up that surge.
Yeah, that was a fight here in the last match. And I believe, you know, they're just trying to find kind of that sneaky 3-2-1 or anything really to catch them off guard. And this could be it.
Trexer is the one in the danger zone, and finally, Ferdoxy's team gonna light him up. Trexer immediately knocked. Robin can't even reconsider whether or not he wants to try and help out his teammate. He is just fully on the run, cheating, completely separated from the rest of his team. Also, Ferdoxy just chasing him out. HP advantage distinctly in Ferdoxy's favor, and so much quicker. And Cheatin just nowhere left to run, completely edge of the map now. It just feels inevitable for Ferdoxy's team to claim this final elimination out of the trio.
I mean, at this point, if I'm cheating, I'm using all my metal. I'm throwing all my heals. I'm saying, I'm giving you the least amount of things I can give you, because it's going to be very difficult to come out on top. But, you know, this is huge for Ferdoxy, Chino, and Pablo. Not only did they take first in the last match, but now they're looking like they're set up for a solid game here. It's only the early game, but this is how you want to start it off.
But when Ferdoxy's team has been repeat challenging Hopeful Heights, that's bound to cause for some adjustments for Cheatin's trio later on. We'll see what Game 10 potentially has in store for them. Scroll, I drop Sky, though. They're not willing to try and get their surge like everybody else in the base strategy. They are just one more time looking for the box fights outright. Whiffy Wharf. And this is nice for Scroll, iDrop, and Sky, because right now there's no third-party involvement, and that's exactly how you want to keep it when you are challenging these other teams directly.
Okay. A little bit of explosives being put on top of Rickmore. Rickmore, Zara, and Zangi they've been having some difficult moments at these matches. I feel like they're always getting aggressed on, having to play defensive. And this time around, being eye drop, Sky, and Scroll, they don't really want to give them a break.
It's just the end result of Scroll, eye drop, and Sky, and landing at Shiny Shafts, Uncon. So they're gonna have to make up for that surge damage eventually. Prodoxy, Chino, and Pablo, once they started to depart though from Hopeful Heights, countered Dexy, and Dexy just trying to get out. Chino, with a huge chunk of his HP, finds the final tag. That's gonna be a knock. Just running him down entirely. Gotta be wary though, Prodoxy falling incredibly low, but the backup of his teammates, it's all said and done. Another fight going cleanly the way of Prodoxy's team. They are making a statement with each of their lobbies today, Takada.
They really are. I mean, not only were they confident before, but now after that clutch against Kami, Seti, and Hari, they're on another level now. Just pushing trio after trio. You gotta say, okay, you know, now you can stop now, right? You got 6 eliminations, you're good. Go with the rotate, get your mats capped. Like, the job's done for now. This is incredible for them, though. They are so set up in terms of points with the elims to just play as safely as they need to, get the best positioning they can. I'm excited to see how this match plays out for them. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer had a rough game in the last match. They were looking for a good position, but Thomas ended up getting caught off guard, I believe, by Ping when he was playing as a solo. Kind of split up the trio, and they weren't able to get a lot of points. So we'll see if that changes this time around. At Seaport, gotta have your eyes on, you know, where's Queasy at.
But at the end of the day, all Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer really need to do is maintain that position inside of that top 7 threshold on the leaderboard. They're skirting the line though, in 6th, heading into this lobby. And with so many teams close behind, they probably want to have a pretty standout performance to kind of just separate them from the rest of the pack. Mustache and Swizzy, they're gonna have to take a detour all the way back into Storm. Hope that they don't attract too much attention for it. Losing Queasy, a pretty big blow to their rotational strategies, and they've been forced out of Seaport entirely.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the amount of trios kind of around Seaport at this point. Normally, Queasy's taking advantage of these trios. You know, he's shooting them now on their base as they're rotating through, even letting them pass in some examples and continuing to take those shots. But after getting eliminated, that's gonna, you know, damage a big part of the whole Surge strat. So I'm curious to see how they're gonna hold up in terms of damage later on into this match now, with this being the case.
Well, they made it over to Shining Span, so Queasy will be brought back into the action. But yeah, with so many teams inside of Seaport itself, these guys are certainly in for a bit of a doozy. Launchpad will help them out just a little bit, but one positive I think to keep in mind is it's usually Swizzy and Mustache who are on surge damage duties, so they might not have lost as much as what they could have possibly lost in terms of having to play for Queasy's reboot. It is still annoying though when you lose that prime positional advantage. Twy punishing Savage and Vadil. They were looking for a fringe play themselves, trying to get Reason back into the match, and Twy's team, they had to pounce on the opportunity. They've been playing a huge catch-up game for the entire weekend.
Now Demus, Hicks, and Darm have only made it into the top 10 once. And when they did, you know, get 9 eliminations. They had a good game, but they really are having difficulties. Actually, I'm mistaken. They made it to the top 10 a few times. And when they do, they perform well. They've gotten 4th, 3rd. But a lot of games, they're also getting eliminated around 20th. So they're kind of just lacking that, you know, consistency of constantly making top 10s, but it's balanced out enough to put them in 10th going into this match. Issue is, you got to be top 7 if you want to qualify to the global championship. So they're going to have to do a little better for these last few matches.
And I know in Major 1, these guys were given that, shock the world conclusion because of their 5th place performance with their first time finals appearance as a team. But even if this Major doesn't pan out how they would obviously be hoping for, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. Those guys still have such a high skill ceiling that they can keep trying to push towards. I mean, the coach like Sven behind them, wouldn't be surprised to see them reach that threshold at a pretty rapid rate. But teams like Cammy, Hardy, Seti, they already know what it takes to be in those winning positions. And it's going to come a relatively difficult way for them because every other team has the same strategy in mind. We are looking for our surge bases.
There's a lot of them around this side of the map. It's one of those clusters. I mean, we talked about it, minimizing risk, but at the same time, it would be nice to see a little bit more close quarters combat. This is good, though, for Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. They can keep themselves safe, looking for damage when they, see the openings, and even be on the uncongested side if Zone continues pulling up north. Vico, Veno, Flixie still at the same spot. They dropped that. They did have Island spawn close to them as well, which is pretty nice.
They didn't really have a reason to leave Lone Wolf considering how the zone pool, but Queasy, Murstache, Swizzy possibly in a spot of trouble here, dealing with Trulex and Noah Riley. Health advantage in their favor, though. Trulex not wanting to get stuck between Swizzy, but Rock in a hard place. There's nowhere left for him to run. Trulex will be eliminated. Noah Riley could be next. Swizzy certainly hunting for it. Murstache gonna take a moment just to replenish his shields. But with Swizzy and Queasy playing backup, Shark is just forced to retreat. 2 of the fraggers, though. That's probably who you'd want to be left in a fighting position out of Trulex's team. They could make something big happen here. It could also pose a huge problem if they do find another knocker elimination onto Queasy's team, and Queasy's team, they know better than to stick around for it. They already got what they were after in terms of damage. They want to just start rotating out now because the lobby has started to take notice of what's going down on this mountainside.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. They weren't able to do their normal surge route, so opting to kind of needing to take a fight. It's a good idea to do now before you're in desperation being low on surge. Pablo, Fred, and Chino now in zone. We saw they got those 6 eliminations early on, so they're more than comfortable enough here to not do anything too crazy. 832 above.
It's exactly where they want to be, and they're not caught in the heart of some of the congestion that's actually building inside of Flooded Frogs. So many teams just looking to try and leverage some of the natural landscape. Thomas up on Panzer, also a little bit on the outskirts. And Thomas, Panzer, Uppel, they're just going to continue trying to find their own position. It's away from most of the commotion. Unfortunately, Thomas realizing that there are teams that have a slightly elevated point of view and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, they don't really mind to kind of stay in zone here. They know it's very likely that people rotate through, especially the Magic Mosses area. You can see with the drone shot, the trios that are going to be choosing to do so as well. It is kind of a waiting game for now, though. They even pulled zone. Not bad at all. See them moving around. They're like, hold on a minute. Wait, we already got a base here. We can just kind of take it over, make it ours. Little surprised with the RNG from that pull, but this is good.
No complaints, though, either. Definitely a nice spot to be in. Just repurposing some of these pre-existing builds, but some real big powerhouse teams off in the distance that could definitely be held here by Thomas's trio. And Queasy, though, everybody always commends his IGLing, and for good reason. He knows better. He knows that if they try to just white line into zone, they're only going to be picked off for it. They're going to do a complete wraparound through Magic Mosses. Swizzy does have a couple of med kits on top of the med miss grenade. So the white heals might be enough to sustain them through, and they are just holding out with the damage threshold too. So waiting things out could end up saving them from being eliminated too soon. Waiting things out could end up saving them from being eliminated too soon. Waiting things out could end up saving them from being eliminated too soon. Waiting things out.
Last zone they can kind of do that though. It goes from 1 tick to 2 tick in this zone, and after it, it's going to be 5 tick, the damage that they receive from being inside the storm. So kind of want to start making their way closer and closer to the zone to prepare for that 7th zone when it does start doing 5 damage per second. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer, though, great job holding on to the base. As it looks like Vico, Veno, Flixie opting to a similar strat.
Yeah, just such a tough spot for Queasy's team because of what looked like it was going to be a nice wraparound. They realized too much commotion still coming through Flooded Frogs. We're not going to be able to go that way either. But Veno's team also, in the benefits, Pixie trying to get the revive off now onto Marius. Other teams, though, looking in, trying to see if they can claim Marius's life, but Chino, Prodoxy, Pablo, no success. No success either for Pink's team. And this could be an outright brawl between these 3 trios. Pixie, Vanya, and Marius, though, they just don't want to be sandwiched. They're not interested in being the middleman for this conversation. They don't necessarily need to fight right now either.
It's quite unfortunate because they literally pulled zone all the way and flooded their drop spot. So getting the focus on them is not what you want happening. But they aren't going to choose to kind of elevate themselves yet. They're just going to stay in the builds they already had. I'm surprised Marius is at 0 metal at this point, having, you know, to not rotate that much throughout the match, but it is the most scarce resource. Just kind of camp it to see in case someone goes through the porter potty, but for now they're good.
Marius is just waiting for the green light, holding out that splash. He knows they've got to move ahead of the lobby. And Thomas just doing what Thomas does best with that mythic drum gun, spraying and controlling the flow of the teams outside of where they're currently based up. But Panzer, just sliver of HP, somehow manages to finagle his way back to his team. But this is a troublesome spot. Everybody that was shooting this direction bound to know how incredibly hurt Panzer is. And sure enough, they're not letting up the pressure. Panzer completely dropped now. Seti, Hari, Kami overtaking the high position that Thomas once held moments ago. But the double revive will at least work out. They've got to get out of this spot, though. They don't want to get caught waiting just one step too long. They're trying to clear out a path forward. They're trying to force some of the other teams ahead of them to move to a separate spot. But everybody just trapped right now in edge of zone.
Yeah, I mean, not only did they lose a good opportunity for, or a good position, but also just the opportunity for those tags. For Doxy, Pablo, and Chino, though, luckily enough, don't have to worry as much about that, and even have pulled 8th zone here. This is massive for them as they're going to conserve so many materials and have free shots on the players around them. As you can see, already pre-building out with those hard builds, getting ready for what's to come. Merch, Stash, Swizzy, Queasy, though, are below, getting ticked by Surge. Put them into panic, as now all they need to do is connect one shot. Obviously, they want to be above as much as possible, but come on, one bullet is all it's going to take to stop losing HP here.
A literal single shot. It does seem like they finally managed to find it, but still only 8 above. Flubshy's team now trying to barrel into their builds, but that's the hits that we need, and Merstash gonna find 2 back-to-back eliminations. Couldn't have come at a better time. The Siphon also going to make it easy for him to reunite with Queasy and Swizzy, but still a lot of congestion towards this backside of the zone. But with that additional damage, they now feel confident to be able to just kind of scale their way, elevate a little bit from that total low ground, and try to find their next position. Not an easy task, though, by any means.
Up above, it's gonna be shafts to V. Luckily enough, did not take fall damage. Which is good. Vico, Veno, Flixi, on the other hand, trying to be the first ones here to rotate towards this side. Will they see it as an option to build up, or will they just play it safe here and keep on building into zone? We've seen them do height takes quite later on in these matches. They're not so focused on doing it early if the zones aren't in their favor. But Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy are going to be the ones that are looking to hold it.
Okay, Merstash on a bit of a roll now. 4 eliminations, and he has found all of them in the past couple of minutes. Trying to get to this front side, and it's going to cost Queasy everything. So he gets knocked along the way. Always a bit of a risky maneuver, but Merstash, he doesn't care. He knows it's just time to frag out. Swizzy, too, finds Seti on the rotate. That's going to sabotage Poland just a bit here, but Swizzy, if he's not careful, he'll find himself in a similar route. He's just going to break through the builds, tag along with Merstash now. He at least has that lawless slap jug, but how much more do they have to do? There's so many other teams on the low ground, and for Doxy's team, they are based in a pretty set mid layer. Looking down at the front side low, Chicho and Tayson, they might have to deal with Doxy's team shortly.
Vanya, Marius, Pixie with the zone pull were able to claim height. Vico, Veno, Flixi down below, trying to see if they can claim low for now. A lot of full trios that are up and ready to go. Cringe Volko on the side, doing what they can to get into zone. Right now, just anything possible to stay up.
This is home field, though, for Vico, Flixi, and Veno. This is where they found success in Major 1 finals. So for it to be running back now, Vico, Flixi, Veno, they are just trailing through this front side low. Chino on the other end of the wall. Chino will manage to escape, but Vico, he is looking for the Elans wherever he can find them. Upall just trying to remain concealed. Out of sight, out of mind type mentality. Gonna try and even utilize a team's madness grenade, but doesn't even make it in. Gets eaten alive. Marius, Pixie, Vanya, though, this is a nice spot to be. They've got the high ground control, but they are low on mats. They're just trying to spray and prevent any teams from challenging the height takeover. But they need to be careful. They don't want to overexpose themselves. And with these wood builds, teams are going to be looking to chop them out.
Chops are coming through. They're doing a good job maintaining. The issue is, you got the #1 trio for Doxy, Pablo, Chino. All 3 players are still up. They are playing this perfectly in terms of securing as much placement as possible. They have not even had to look for a single refresh for a majority of this endgame, but now's the time. They're starting to run through. Their aggression's onto them. Pink knocking on the door. Is going to get knocked down. Nebs falls shortly after. Pablo, Chino for Doxy now continuing to build on towards zone.
From teammates to enemies, Pablo, Chino for Doxy. Then they get that wipe hunt to Pink as a tough blow. But Veno, he's still a part of the conversation. He already found a victory royale in the day in match 7, and you can tell that he's after it yet again. Pablo just trying to maintain a little bit of composure in that mid ground, but Veno, Flixi, Vico, they are just steadily so tightly knit. And for Doxy, could be in a world of trouble here, but Veno, he's just trying to break through. Darm, Demas, Pix, they are still a trio, but for how much longer? Because Vico, Flixi, Veno, they chopped them down. And that's going to be the first elimination onto Darm. Flixi having been returned fire, though. This is a big casualty, though, for Doxy's team. Mayday situation, and they are out of the running here.
With 7 eliminations, there's a reason he's leading the pack in the lobby, but I might have spoken too soon. Marius shuts him down. This is perfect for Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. They had all the trios down below face off against each other. Now, giving them that player advantage, 2 trios left. 6 players, all they need to do is close this off, but Pixie has been knocked down. Chug Chug in hand, 6 splashes. Med mist, is it going to be enough to win the heal off?
That's going to be the only intention here, but Vanya is getting completely chased out. Atris hot on his heels. Atris knows if I don't find this final shot, that's going to leave it down to Tayson to try and see if he can battle it out for the heal off. But Vanya, he's managed to find a plethora of whites, another Menmis grenade, another Chug Jug even. Sure, they're just remnants, but it could be the difference maker here. Tayson now on the move. Tayson doesn't have any whites remaining. He's just trying to find Vanya. He breaks into the those times, but Tayson can't get the final shot. Vanya manages to hold on here, and that was nearly disastrous for Vanya's team, but a huge moment that they were able to capitalize on.
So close to a tragic ending. Tayson connected his shot, but it was just, what, 10, 15 damage away from taking out Vanya, and he was able to close it out. It was basically a 1 versus 3. He managed to escape while all 3 of Tayson's players, were still up and going. He managed to start the heal off. He closed the gap when Tayson pushed in, and they ended up securing that win. This is going to shake up the leaderboard.
It's just crazy to think, though, that Vanya nearly missed out on securing the win here, but respect to Tayson. You've got to put some respect on Tayson's name for trying to run him down at the end there. Still, a lot that took place here in Game 9. So, Frankie, what have you got for us?
Well, I've got the feeling that Tayson remembered that this is a major final, and so he was like, oh yeah, I'm always in those. I need to show up. And a fantastic second place for his trio, onwards and upwards for those guys. However, it's more of the same from Marius, Pixie, and Vanya Miniminer. A 3rd victory royale. I'm not going to question Vanya's hunger ever again.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we talked about it going into that game, how important it is now for them to step up to the plate and really just keep applying that pressure onto that sort of top 2 that are battling it out right now. And they've just done that with aplomb right there. Really great work from those guys. What I liked about that end game, as we saw in individual moments in those highlights, was every single teammate, every single player in that trio had an impact. We saw Pixie going absolutely crazy there at the backside of zone, getting elimination, using the new mobility, or the new movement, I should say. We saw, of course, Marius jumping into the box of Vico there at the end to eliminate him, and then of course Vanya right at the end, just surviving on 5 HP. Every single person played their part, and that's what that trio is so good at.
Once again, Miniminer just summing it up perfectly, right? I mean, you look at... No, genuinely though, but it's spot on. They have been so relentlessly good at all having a big impact, right? And I think that's one of the things when this team first formed. I think when you looked at, you have 3 big names, 3 talented players. It's like, how do they gel together as a team? They've done that excellently, but games like this where they do show the individual impact each of them can have, it is part of why they are a team, again, that has to be considered in that formula, right? When I was talking before the game, I said, look, it's a 4-horse race. These guys are in it with another good game, and straight away, they come through and win the next game. So you love to see it. I'm just so curious about how the leaderboard looks now, Frankie, because there were so many of our top teams in that endgame, so many good teams in that endgame. Of course, we're looking at the race for who's actually going to win it all, but even just some of the teams just below fighting for global spots, a lot of those teams were in it at the end there. So it's really heating up in the back end of this tournament now.
That top 10 was indeed full of big names you would expect to make it to the Fortnite Global Championships, but we only have 5 spots for our trios tonight, so we'll be finding out who is going to be edging ever closer to Leon after this break.